Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing about lean principles. Have you put yourself this question any time as to why does your company exist? What kind of answers do you get? I have asked this question to many companies in the last 10 years, and the most common answers I get are we produce good quality, we deliver on time, and we are competitive, etc. But to me, the answer has been very simple. You are existing in your business today because there's somebody out there who's willing to pay a price for your service. There's somebody out there who needs your service. If there's no somebody out there and there's no need for your service in the market, perhaps no matter how good quality you produce, how fast you deliver, how competitive you are, you don't survive. So the principle here is there is somebody out there who's willing to pay a price for our service, who needs our service or the product we produce. So let us start there. Lean principles are the ones which make a company survive and excel in the long run. There are 5 lean principles which I will take you through. Principle number 1, which is called as value. When we say value, what do we mean by value? And who defines value? One of the most common mistakes we do is look at what we do from our point of view, from a producer's point of view. What we have to do is take a shift in the perception and look at what we do from the consumer's point of view or from the customer's point of view. We have to look at what we do from the perspective of someone who's paying for our services. So when we take a walk of our processes, step by step, we have to look at every step and put this question to the step: if I were to be the customer, will I be willing to pay for that particular step? Perhaps the answers may come a little different than what you thought them to be. So when we talk about value, value is something which the customer sees in what you do in a step-by-step basis, and he will choose some of those steps to pay for and some of those steps not to pay for. So those steps which customer is willing to pay for is called as a value added step. End of the day, we are surviving because we are delivering value to the customer, and when value is delivered to the customer pays for the value he receives. So when we look at value, there are 3 principal criteria which define value. Criteria number 1, a step in your process which transforms the input into some kind of an output, a finished outcome or a semi-finished outcome which aligns with what the customer wants. So the first criteria of value definition is a step that is aligned in transformation of an input to an output with respect to what the customer wants. So I would say A, transformation. So this transformation, for example, could be entering a data in the data field, looking in the scan images if you are a transaction business. This transformation could be reducing a diameter of 4 mm shaft to a 2 mm shaft if it is aligned with what the customer wants. If you are into manufacturing of products, this could be writing a line of code or writing a couple of lines of code which align with a certain functionality which the customer wants in the feature as a feature in the software application which he has outsourced to you. So this transformation is that particular step which takes the input and converts the input to an output which is aligned with what the customer wants. That is criteria number 1. Second criteria aligns with how are you doing it in that particular step. If you are doing it right the first time, then that is called a value added transformation. If you're not doing it right the first time, though there is a transformation, but that is not called as value added transformation. So the key criteria here to remember is uh, the transformation step, was it done right the first time? Done right the first time. So there you go. You have got two criteria which qualify a particular step, whether it is value added or not. The criteria number one is transformation of an input to an output aligned with the customer need. Criteria number two is that particular transformation which is taking place is done right the first time. It is not rework, it is done right the first time. The third criteria is a step which customer is willing to pay for. Now, when you look at the steps that you do to convert a requirement of a customer to output to the customer, you might classify most of your steps as value added. That is quite natural to do so because you are looking at what you do from your point of view. Just change your perception and look at what you do from the customer's point of view. Think as though you are going to pay for each of those steps from your pocket. Then you will see a difference in terms of most of the steps that you undertake are actually non-value added steps, and a few are there in the stream of steps that produce value which is aligned with the customer needs. Okay, so when we talk about the first principle, it is called value, and the starting point in the lean thinking is understanding value or looking for value from the customer point of view and not from the producer point of view. And the starting point has to be very strict in terms of what would you define as value and what would you define as a non-value added step, because something that you define as a value added step whereas it was a non-value added step, then you're making a mistake and there's no starting point. Perhaps you will do nothing about that particular step. So it doesn't matter whether you are able to do something about that step today or tomorrow. It doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you have to call a non-value added step as a non-value added step, the value added step as a value added step. And the key here, remember, is to look at what you do not from your point of view, but look at what you do from the customer's point of view. Think as though you are going to pay for that particular step from your pocket. Now, we move on to the second principle of lean, which is called as value stream. Well, whatever the customer gives us as a work to do and expects us to deliver a service or the product to him goes through a series of steps, either in sequence or in parallel. They might take place in one single department or they might cut across several departments, and it might take several days or it might take a day to convert the input from the customer to output to the customer. So this series of steps which engage in transforming the input from the customer to output to the customer is called as value stream, which is what I've written here. Value stream. So this value stream is nothing but when you become the requirement of the customer yourself, imagine as though you are going from one step to other step, and everybody out there in each of those steps is working on you. So you are added something here and there at every step. So you might be undergoing something at step number 1, you might be undergoing something at step number 2, step number 3, and so on and so forth. So when we want to understand the value stream, you will have to assume that you are the purchase order that the customer has released, and how does the purchase order convert from a purchase order state to the finished goods state and finally reaches the customer. Similarly, if you are a transaction process, you will have to imagine as though you are just a downloaded document which now is ready to undergo transformation from a downloaded document to various digitized data which is entered in various fields and finally is uploaded to the customer. So you have to assume or imagine that you are that document which is just about downloaded from the customer's server, the client server. So when we want to map the value stream, it is to imagine that you have become that input from the customer and you go step by step by step till the last stage, before which it is just finished and it is uploaded to the customer or sent or dispatched to the customer. So that way when you do, you will get to see how many transformation steps are involved in converting some input from the customer into delivering the converted output from the input to the customer. So what is value stream? It is a series of steps either in sequence or in parallel which engage to convert the raw material or the input from the customer to finished good back to the customer, and all the steps which fall in perspective comprise what we call is value stream. Okay. Now, why do we need this value stream? Because we want to look at the third principle in the value stream. What is that? We call it as flow. So when you look at the third principle of lean, and when you create steps that goes into converting an input to an output to customer, there is a possibility that you will discover there is a do time and there's a wait time in between. Again, there's a do time, there's a wait time in between. And do and wait, do and wait, do and wait. So, like this, the time that you take to complete the input from the customer to ship the final product or the service to the customer is a sum total of all the do's over here and all the waits over here. Final time. Have you ever wondered what causes the work to wait in between these steps? There could be some reasons for that. Well, there could be a lot of things in between two steps which we call as inventory, which we call as things to do for this step. You may not be doing just one customer, you might be doing multiple customers, and there could be a lot of waiting material in between these two steps which lead to a job A has to wait till the job B finishes here, job B has to wait till job C finishes here, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there could be instances of waiting in between these steps, and there are going to be instances of waiting within the steps also. So I can say there could be possibly a wait within the step, within the step, within the step, and so on. So put it this way also, the sum total of the time that it would take to deliver something to your customer is a total of your do time and your wait time. Why do things wait? Well, the reasons are classified. There could be reasons such as there's a decision pending on some of these products over here, some of these services over here, which has to wait till the final confirmation comes, and then it will have to ship. Or there could be some escalations going in between, or they could be waiting because you have not designed your process in such a way that you eliminate waiting times in between the steps by design. So the work in principle doesn't flow start to finish, and this is common across manufacturing, transaction, and a lot of service-oriented organizations. So the third principle here deals with what is causing the work to wait, either within the step or in between the step. When we get to the value stream and when we map each of those steps in great detail, we will get to know by data and by going to the place where the work happens, they call it Gemba. That why the work waits in between the steps and between the steps. Okay, so now you will have to understand, or you will have to look for where are the opportunities that the work waits and why it waits. So when we say about flow, when we talk about flow, we say, okay, if the work is starting in some place, ideal is the work should finish and just get shipped to the customer. But this is the most ideal state. The work has to start, finish, and get shipped. It doesn't happen so. It is like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, and finally the work is shipped. But that comprises of your total lead time to deliver an input from the customer back to the customer in terms of the finished good or the service. Well, you might still be well within your turnaround time targets or delivery time targets, but the fact remains that the work is not happening in a flow manner. It is happening in a start, stop manner. So, when we make the value stream, what we look for is what are the potential opportunities and what are the spots where the work is not flowing, the work is stopping, and what are the potential reasons why it stops. Now, the lean philosophers have identified a couple of reasons as to why work stops, it doesn't flow. Here are the reasons what the lean philosophers say. So, what stops flow? Here are the reasons. T, call it as transport. Well, transport for manufacturing, or it could be a handoff in services. Okay? Now, I, call it inventory, or the files in queue, or the works in queue, or transactions in queue to be taken up by the subsequent process step. So call them inventory. Then, portion. These are those small repetitive steps which you have to do like in one of the transactions. Because of the poor programming or the poor application, this one button has to be pressed umpteen times, press, and somehow it creates some kind of fatigue. It's motion based. I have to repeat some of the steps repeatedly enough, and the fatigue gets into the system, and I don't like that particular step. Or in manufacturing, it could be the design and the ergonomic design of the machine center, when I have to stretch a little too much to get some tool or some jig or some fixture, bend a little too much or stretch a little too much, and it's not ergonomically designed, and that leads to a motion waste. Then we have bar. Waiting for decision, waiting for some clarification, waiting because your workflow is not balanced, your capacities are not balanced, you have a higher capacity in one place, you have a lower capacity in one place. So the one which produces faster, it produces so fast that there's a pile of inventory between the fast step and the slow step. So eventually, by design, the material in between these two steps is destined to wait. So waiting. Over processing. When we talk about over processing, since we are habituated to look into the work we do from a producer's point of view, what we do taking 3 steps, what we do taking 2 steps, 4 steps seems fine to us. But we never got the time to step back and look at the way we do things. Who knows? Actually, when you take a step back and focus on a particular step of the process, you might discover that you have been taking 3 steps to do that, whereas a little smart way of doing it would reduce the 3 steps to 1 step. So over processing. So that is one of those wastes, which results in lack of flow or stoppage of the work. Overproduction. But why do we produce more than what is needed? It leads to another question. How do we define what is needed? And who defines what is needed? Uh, in Japan, they say the next operation step, next process step is a customer. Have you ever taken some time off from your work to understand who is your next operation step, who is your next step, and what is the capacity at which he or she can work? For instance, if the next step can do only 60 an hour, whereas you are producing 80 an hour, there's a difference of 20 an hour. So you are going to produce 80 an hour for 8 such hours, and you will produce 640 for the day. That way, it will leave by end of the day 160 untouched parts or transactions or items for the next step, the subsequent step. Why was that? Because the next step can do as much as 60 an hour and you are doing 80 an hour. So that's what we call you are overproducing in this step and is not balanced with the next step, leaving an inventory by end of the day. So that we call overproduction. And then we have got defects. Defects start the process. When we find a defect in any of the steps, we have to start the process and we have to process it over again. Now, defects slow down the process. Defect causes rejects. Defects cause customer dissatisfaction, and defects result in scrap many times. So these are those 7 classic wastes which make the work stop on more than one steps. So the work, as a consequence of these wastes being there in the value stream, undergoes a start stop cycle. The work just doesn't flow from start to finish. So when we make the value stream, we will have to see for the opportunities of where the work is stopping, why it is stopping. You're most likely to find out the reasons of its stoppages belonging to one or more of these categories. Now, there is one 8th waste which is got introduced called as skills. What is that waste about? A lot of people in the organization are so much engaged in day-to-day work, routine work, that they don't get time to step back and look at how they're doing things. All of us are gifted with some amount of creativity and innovation within ourselves. So are we really utilizing the skills that we have to look at what we do and how we do? So are we given enough opportunity and time to look at what we do and how we do? So can we be smart in what we do? We can do all that provided we have that time given by our supervisors or superiors to step back, look at what we are doing and what is the smart, the most efficient way of doing it. So in that way, if you're not utilizing our ability to change, to create, to innovate, we are wasting our skills. So these are the 7 and plus 1, 8 wastes which hamper the flow of the input from the customer. At the end of the day, we somehow or the other just manage to meet what the customer wants on time, in full, with the quality. Sometimes we get penalized for not shipping the quality to the customer. Penalties become order of the day. So if it is time, it's time for taking a step back and looking at your value stream and understanding where the flow is not happening and why it is not happening. And then you will have to get into sorting out how do you overcome the reasons of lack of flow. Now, I hope you remember these 3 principles. The quick recap would be value. Who defines value? The customer defines value. What is it you have to do to define the value? Wear the customer hat. Do not wear producer's hat. Look at your process from the point of view of your customer. Don't look at your process from your point of view, that is producer's point of view. And imagine as though you are paying from your pocket for all those steps. That is when you will realize what is value added, what is non-value added. Okay? Now there are 3 criteria which define value in a step. Criteria number 1 is transformation, which is aligned with what the customer wants. Criteria number 2 is that transformation should be done right the first time. It should not be producing a defect. It should not be a rework step. And criteria number 3 is that particular step for which you're willing to pay for is something which customer is willing to pay for. So these 3 criteria define the value. Then you imagine yourself to become the work order given by the customer, and you go through the process steps in sequence and or in parallel, one by one, imagining yourself to be that particular work order which is undergoing transformation in more than one stages of your business process flow. Once you make the value stream map, the third principle applies. You will have to look for what is causing an hindrance in flow, what is stopping the work to go from start to finish in one go. What is causing the work to stop in more than one places. So, and when you look for what is stopping the work in more than one places, this could provide you some food for thought in terms of where either handoff or transport is engaged, where you're finding pile of inventories as a consequence of workflow not properly designed between the processing steps, and there's a motion waste, you're stretching, you are doing a repetitive step quite a bit, and that is causing a lot of fatigue. This could be a problem with ergonomics in manufacturing or even in services side. Then waiting, while the work is waiting, wherever it is waiting. Over processing, what you could do in 3 steps, what you could do in 2 steps, why are you taking 4 or 5 steps to do that? Maybe a smart Excel macro will do the job for you if you're in transaction. Overproduction, why and where are things produced more than what the next process step can consume or can handle, and defects, why things are not done right the first time in more than one places, what are the causes to it, and finally the skills, what could be done better utilizing the resources and their ability to create and innovate. Okay. Now we go on to the 4th principle. Once we locate the wastes in the system, then we look for where we are having a push production. A push production. What does push production mean? If you go back to my previous explanation, I say there's a step which is producing 80 an hour, and there is a subsequent step which is producing 60 an hour, and there's no control between these 2 steps. So the person is producing 80 an hour, he just produces and produces and produces. It is just given to the next step without really caring whether the next step can take it all in that particular hour or not. That leads to overproduction. When you have a lot of inventories between various steps, various processing steps, you may say you are not engaging in full production. Full production is something which is called as every step produces only to an extent that the subsequent step can consume. In other words, who causes the pull? The pull is caused by the next step, and the next step will take only as much as that particular step can consume or do in an hour's time. So, like that, if you take all the steps in sequence, then each of these steps start demanding only as much as they can do in an hour's time, then we say you are going towards full production. So in summary, full production is nothing but producing to customers' demand. Who's the customer? Look at it this way. The next operation step, the next process step is the customer. So full production, when we say you only produce, you produce to demand. You produce to demand. And who demands? And who demands? The next operation, the next step in the process demands. The next step is a customer. The next step is the customer. So, when you produce this way, you ensure by design that no much inventory is found between the process steps. Okay? So, we go back. First principle of lean says value. The second says value stream. The third says flow. The fourth says pull. And the fifth one is called perfection. When do we stop finding out non-value added activities? Continue on the journey as long as you discover non-value added activities. It's a journey. It's not something that we think of today and can accomplish tomorrow. And the total employee of the organization have been involved in participating in this journey, and it's a persevering path. So it's a every day that everybody looks into what they do and how they do things, and every day everybody questions what they do in terms of what is value added, what is non-value added. And when many such days roll to years, there will be an year ahead, maybe sooner, maybe later, that you will see you will have virtually no non-value added activities or time or effort being spent in what you do. So that is a state of perfection. So the perfection as a goal, when you keep perfection as a goal, it keeps your continuous improvement journey on, and if you persevere on the path, it will take you to the stage of virtually having only value added activities by end of the day. Thank you.